Hey everybody, I hope you can see me now. If you can see me, include the city that you're tuned in from, whether it's a hello, they're hailing from Williamsburg. Lisa, hi, you're not too far away from Suffolk. And Liz, awesome, great to see you as well. And tell me what you're drinking too, because I'm about to open up this bottle of white Rioja. It's springtime season, so tell me what you're drinking, and we shall get started shortly. About to open up this white Rioja. It is from Rioja, Spain, and it's from the region of Rioja Alavesa. So Rioja is broken up into 3 regions specifically. Rioja Baja, that's closer to the Mediterranean coast. Rioja Alavesa to the north and above the river, the Rio Ebro, and Rioja Alta, which is actually below the river. So Rioja Alta, you would think it would be further above, but it's considered Alta because higher elevation. So this is Rioja by Ostatu, and it's from Rioja Alavesa. It is a blend of Viura, about 85% and 15% Malvasia. Unoaked, really crisp, clean, easy drinking style. I'm sharing some with friend Virginia, so I don't feel like I'm drinking alone in my apartment talking to my computer for an hour. So here you go, Virginia. Cheers. Cheers, everybody, and welcome to the virtual wine class. I see Craig. Awesome. Craig was tuning in for my test run of this virtual wine class on YouTube Live, where I was trying to figure out how to get everything going, and it was really awkward on the phone with my dad, trying to figure out how to run everything, not knowing that people are tuning in live to that. So, oh, Chase, my best friend from Norfolk. Jeanette, hi, great to see you from Chesapeake, awesome. Oh, Greco de Tufo, nice. Greco is one of my favorite grapes, and it's grown in the volcanic hills of Campania, Italy, and is delightful. And what are you drinking, Liz? You're from Richmond. Orange wine. All right, so real quick, let's talk about orange wine, especially Pinot Grigio. Orange wine is not like rosé. Rosé is made from rosé is made from red grapes that just have partial skin contact. So you harvest the grapes, you put them in the big vats, you crush them, and they only spend, 6 to 10 to 12 hours max on the skins, which is the only thing that gives red wine its color. So with just 6 to 12 hours, you have rosé wine. You have pink colored wine instead of red wine. Red wine is, it takes 3 weeks sometimes of skin contact to get that full extraction of flavor. Orange wine is made from white grapes, actually, that spend extended time on the skins. And the reason that's really different is because normally white wine is the juice pressed off the skins almost immediately. Generally, you don't want those bitter tannins, those phenolics, that kind of grippy, bitter sensation in your mouth that comes from the skins of the grapes for white wine. You'd want that for red. You kind of need that extra oomph factor, that structure. But for white wine, generally, most grapes can't handle that. But there's some grapes that handle it really well. And Pinot Grigio from the area of Friuli, made in the Ramato style, so extra skin contact, so it has this darker color, is one way that happens. So that's orange wine. Let's see what else. Who else is here? Awesome. Ooh, Pommard. Oh my gosh, Martha sold you a Pommard. Interesting. See who you're cheating on me with. All right, Ricky and Day. Hi guys, how are you? Great to see you. Let's see. Hi, Emily. Jim and Sharon, awesome. Great to see y'all. I accidentally FaceTimed y'all earlier, and just goes to show I'm not very good with this whole technology. Oh my gosh, I have people tuning in from Colorado. That's awesome. Hi, Taryn and Dawn. Great to see you, or see you. Western Branch, fabulous. Sangiovese, that's awesome. Sangiovese is one of my favorite grapes from Italy. High acid, high tannins. It's got like this verve and tension to it. It's really beautiful. Carla and Eric from Williamsburg. Hopefully y'all are staying safe and healthy out there. Steve and Trina, they happen to be my parents from Suffolk, so no one say anything that was going to get me in trouble. Drinking Polenta Grand Cabernet Franc. Now that is one of my favorite Cabernet Francs. of all times from Argentina. Not typically my go-to wine region, but that wine is phenomenal. So that's awesome. Shelly, hey guys, how are you? Shelly and Gino. See Kevin and Denise, also Williamsburg. Y'all gotta stay safe out there. Williamsburg is like this crazy time right now. Quilt Cabernet, awesome. So Quilt is Cabernet made from the Caymus family. So Caymus Cabernet made by the Wagner family, makes a bunch of different labels. Quilt is one of them. And, ooh, okay. Hello, Lori. Awesome. So speaking of orange wine and Pinot Grigio, that Ramato style, that skin contact, Lori is drinking the Pinot Grigio from the Italian six-pack that I just put out for my curated six-pack. So, oh, fabulous. Washington State Riesling, especially with seafood, sounds amazing. You guys are drinking some great wine. Just tell me what time you started drinking today, too. I'm very curious to see how this quarantine, social distancing, and working from home has affected everyone's drinking habits. So here's the deal. I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never done a virtual wine class before. I'm very used to human interaction, and this is odd for me. So I'm going to need y'all to post questions that you've been wanting to know about, post questions about the wine you're drinking, post questions about pairing recommendations, your thoughts on climate change, how it's affecting the wine industry, your thoughts on the restaurant industry and how it's being affected by coronavirus. Anything that you're wanting to know, this is a chance for me to interact with you all one-on-one in a virtual way and answer a bunch of questions. But first, I need to taste this wine and tell you what I am drinking. So this is by Ostatu, again, Rioja Alavesa, so above the Rio Ebro in the northern side of Rioja, further inland. Lots of clay and limestone here. They call it calcareous soil. Limestone is really important in terms of the growing conditions of the vine itself because of how it stores water and nutrients. So first and foremost, you don't want a whole lot of extra water when you are growing vines. You think plants, they're going to thrive better if you water them all the time. And while if you're trying to grow peach trees, that might work out, vines, in order to make the best fruit possible, which translates to better wine, they need to struggle a little bit more. So if a vine has easy access to water and nutrients, soil, no problems whatsoever, it doesn't struggle enough, and it creates grapes that are lackluster in flavor, structure, intensity, and thus the wines themselves are lackluster in flavor, structure, and intensity. So limestone has really great drainage, which means any excess water is going to be drained out, so you're not going to overwater your vineyards. They won't have too much going on. But it has these little porous pockets throughout the soil that kind of trap water and dissolved nutrients in the water pockets there, in those little porous pockets. That way, the roots, as they dig down deeper, looking for those water sources, have access to it. So if you have too much water during a growing season, then limestone is great because you're going to have all that drainage. But if you're also in a drought season, then limestone is also great because you have those little pockets stored of water and nutrients to allow the vine to survive. So limestone is really important. If you ever hear about limestone this and limestone this, now you know why. It's better storage of water and nutrients, but just in the right amounts. So this is a stainless steel white Rioja. Generally, white Riojas actually have a tendency to be pretty oaky, especially new oak, and can be kind of a full-bodied, pretty intense, really, really rich, weighty, viscous, and a really good alternative if you like oaky, buttery Chardonnays. But in this style, it's more like Sauvignon Blanc meets Pinot Grigio meets Gruner Veltliner, and they all get together and have a baby, oddly. So lots of acidity, really crisp, a little bit of like white floral notes, a little bit of herbaceousness, peach and apricot. What are you getting, Virginia, on this?
Tart.
Tart, yes, all this underripe, bright fruit. So let's try it. Whew. Yeah. Tons of acidity. Oh my word. And that limestone chalky minerality. It's like I'm in 2nd grade and I was in charge of like clamping out the erasers. Sorry, it's hard to talk. My mouth is watering so much now from that acid. And you get that like chalk in the air that kind of gets in your mouth. That's the texture in my mouth right now, along with like lime zest and like peach skins and apricot skins. Really delightful. All I want is like fish tacos, ceviche. I don't want to be out on the beach and not be thinking about a virus. So this is a great wine to take me there. So let me see what y'all have here for questions and such. Ooh, fabulous. The Clos Sirron, really amazing Syrah there. Hello, Michelle. Are you from New Jersey? Are you in New Jersey now, or did you come home in time for this? Let's see. Oh, okay, great, awesome. So Chase is drinking a sparkling rosé Lambrusco. So Lambrusco, many people think it's just like the jug wine that's like sweet, Riunite dessert wine that's terrible. But Lambrusco can actually be really high quality, dry style, amazing, delicious bubbles there. So, well, Barbaresco, fabulous. So Barbaresco is a region in northern Italy that grows Nebbiolo primarily. I like it. Starts at 5:30, still a little bit later than I expected. I expected more like 3 o'clock start times from these drinking, but I'm glad you're drinking it with cheese and charcuterie there. And takeout cocktails. That is awesome. Takeout cocktails sound really, really fabulous. So awesome. All right. So I am going to chat real quick about just wine tasting mechanics 101. What do you do when you have that little ounce of your wine when a server pours it for you and they're waiting for you to swirl the wine and smell it and decide whether or not you like it? What is the server looking for? What are you supposed to do? So you're sitting at the restaurant when all of this gets back to normal. We'll be eating at restaurants again. Order a bottle of wine, and the wine comes out, the server comes out and presents it and pours you just that half an ounce of wine. So what they're looking for is to make sure that the wine, the cork actually has cork taint in it, and that creates this really terrible smell to the wine that smells like wet dog, moldy newspaper, wet cardboard, everything you do not want to smell in a wine. And that's a problem with the cork itself. Not all wines that are sealed with corks have this problem, but you're only going to have that problem if the wine is sealed with a cork. You're never going to have it if it's sealed with a screw cap or a glass cork or anything like that. So they're making sure that it's not corked or cooked. Now, sometimes when the wine bottle is affected by too much heat change. So say it gets up to 80 degrees, wasn't temperature controlled, gets too hot, the wine can actually cook inside the bottle. It's called materization. And that's not good either. And it creates like really flat flavors where you can't really smell anything. Sometimes it'll give that kind of like vinegar-esque smell. If it smells more like salad dressing than wine, then that's not a good thing. But they also just want to make sure the wine is sound, is what you were expecting when you got it. So you get that little sip, give it a good swirl. The reason we swirl the wine for 3 reasons when we're swirling the wine in our glass. One, I always like to swirl it with a light source right behind it. And I've got this really brilliant fluorescent light, so it's pretty intense. And I'm looking for clarity of the wine. I can tell that this wine is unfiltered and unfined because as I swirl it, there's some cloudiness a little bit to it, a little bit hazy, but not too much. And then as the wine settles, I'm looking for the legs of the wine as they come down the glass, the extra wine that forms and falls, the legs or teardrops and fall down the inside of the glass. Always look for the part of the glass that's further away from you for that, not closer to you. It's easier for your eyes to focus on this part. Those legs, while everyone loves talking about legs, we all love looking at legs. Legs are beautiful, but they tell us something. And the legs in a wine glass tell us alcohol percentage. So These legs are actually forming quite slowly. I don't know if it's just because it's the first time I've poured wine in this glass since it's been washed and polished. But the slower the legs form and fall generally indicates the higher the alcohol percentage. So let's just see here. 13%. So it is actually quite high for an old world white wine. Old world meaning anything European. So yes, yeah, that would actually make sense. So it has nothing to do with the glass. That's just accurate. The third reason that we swirl is as the wine coats the inside of the glass, especially with crystal glasses like this that are kind of porous and allow the wine to be absorbed into the glass, alcohol evaporates. Don't worry, it's just a very, very, very slight amount, but that alcohol evaporation releases esters. Esters are the chemical component that connects to your nose and tells you what you are smelling. So that is why people swirl and then smell. So always check out the sight first, smell second, sight, smell, then sip. And when you smell the wine, just make sure it doesn't smell like a wet dog. It doesn't smell like vinegar. It doesn't smell like anything terrible. Now, if it smells like barnyardy, kind of funky, the wine could still be fine. It's just a funky wine, but you definitely do not want it to smell like wet dogs, vinegar, anything like that. But you definitely do not want it to smell like wet dogs, vinegar, anything like that. When you take a sip, I recommend always tasting wine two different ways. That first initial sip, it's kind of like the introduction sip, the first impression sip. I call it the head nod sip because if you sit down next to someone at the bar 6 feet away and you look at them and you just, head nod, that's all you know of them. That's all they know of you. And it's not a conversation. So that's how most people actually taste wine, which is sad. And that's just that first sip, swallow it down right away. It just hits the middle of your tongue. It's not warming up. You're not swishing. You're not swirling. So just like this. That's it. Great, refreshing, bright, crisp white wine. The second sip is when you want to kind of swirl it around a little bit more in your mouth, kind of like mouthwash. You also take a bigger sip in your mouth than you might be used to for wine to do this. You can lean forward and slurp in some air. Make that much noise, yes. And just stir up the wine. The same reason that we swirl the wine in the glass to really release those esters. We're doing that in our mouth while we swish and swirl the wine in our mouth. So let's try this again. Fabulous. Now, if I were a professional that was working a non-virtual event, I'd probably be spitting the wine, but it's a virtual event and I'm not driving anywhere. So I'm going to enjoy this wine tonight. So that's how you are expected to taste the wine, what you're looking for when the server just pours you that out. It obviously doesn't take that long. It should be a 30-second process. And then you give the official thumbs up, heads up, A-OK, and then the server is going to go around and pour the wine. So that's what we're looking for. Let me see if we have any new people tuning in and any questions you might ask. This is the time to ask all those questions. Alex says, why does it have the weird metal thing instead of a normal bubble cage? Oh my gosh, awesome. I wish I don't have a bottle of this with me right now, unfortunately. But they're drinking this one Lambrusco that has a cork on it, just like a champagne cork. Actually, Virginia, would you mind just grabbing me any sparkling wine? Yeah. And instead of the normal cage on top, they have like this metal prong to keep the cork in rather than anything else. So let me just show you this right here. So this is a normal sparkling wine. It's from Argentina, actually, by Zuccardi. As you can see, it has a cage on it. So you peel down the cap of this cage, untwist it, and that's going to no longer be protecting this cork from coming out. So this bottle is at a very different pressure than our normal sea level atmospheric pressures per unit. As soon as it's able to, it wants to find equilibrium. And so it's going to be pretty explosive because there's higher pressure in the bottle, and the cork will explode out of the glass. So you have to have these cages on top of the cork to make sure that you don't have those exploding corks. The one sparkling wine that they are drinking right now, instead of having this full cage, just has this metal prong, and it's just a stylistic thing. I have actually only seen it with that one producer. It's not something that is done all the time. So I think they're just trying to be interesting and unique, but it is pretty cool to see what people come up with to seal their sparkling wine. Let's see what other questions we have out there. Ooh, having a barley wine. I need some more explanation on that. Please let me know. So is that wine specifically made from barley and not grapes? And why is it then not called a beer? Can you send me a picture of the label? I'm really interested in this. Super interesting. Awesome. Pere de Greco with, sorry, it's very far away. That's Italian. With grilled salmon and roasted asparagus. Sounds interesting. Has anyone ever had that experience where you're pairing something and it has asparagus in it, and the wine works with every other component of the dish, but makes the asparagus taste like awful in your mouth? There's an enzyme in asparagus that literally interacts with wine in this really negative way that can be pretty atrocious. So hopefully your Greco is working okay with your asparagus. Try it with just the asparagus alone and see how it changes the taste of the wine. I'm interested in that as well. Leave it to Mark to make a joke about my comments about how slate tastes. But yes, I always talk about minerality in wine because to me, that makes wines more interesting. If it's not just fruit and tannins, but I taste that minerality as well. Steve Hill, my father, asked, can you tell how dry a white wine will likely be from the label? Really great question. So this Rioja right here, how do I know if it's going to be dry or sweet? So dry is the opposite of sweet, but people use dry in two different ways. One, they mean the opposite of sweet, so wine that just doesn't have any of that sweet texture, that sweet taste, any residual sugar. They also use it to describe a wine that has the drying sensation in your mouth, meaning that oaky sensation. So oak or tannins, whether they come from the skin of the grape or the oak that the wine was aged in, kind of coat the inside of your mouth and suck out the moisture from your mouth and creates that very drying sensation, almost like cotton balls are stuck up in your gums. So how do you tell? Well, I can tell, well, this is really tricky. It's actually very difficult to tell. I can tell if a wine's poured in my glass, if it's dry or that has any sweetness or oak in it. But in terms of before I buy it, that's much trickier. Hold on. Okay. Had to go through my stores here. So you can tell with German Riesling, oddly enough, and no, not all German Riesling is sweet. The saying is that all German Riesling is dry except for when it is sweet. So meaning most German Riesling's actually dry. The stuff that they export to the US tends to be a little bit sweeter. So specifically German Riesling, you can tell how dry it is based on the alcohol percentage. So if they ferment a wine all the way dry, meaning they allow that yeast to fully eat all of the sugar of the grapes while it's fermenting until there is no sugar left, then the alcohol percentage will be 12%, maybe 12.5%, thanks to global warming, but about 12%. So if you look at the bottle of a German Riesling, this is Donhof Riesling. This is Trocken, meaning dry, so they actually tell you here in German, but sometimes they don't. It's 11.5% alcohol. So I know that this is borderline bone dry, 0 residual sugar. It probably has like 1 gram per liter residual sugar. The closer it is to 7%, that means that they've stopped the fermentation process before it gets to 12%, meaning they've left some of the sugar in the wine. So they haven't let the yeast eat all of the sugar. because fermentation 101, yeast eats the sugar of the grape. The byproduct is alcohol. So the more food the more food that the yeast has to eat and does eat, the higher the alcohol percentage will be in the wine. So alcohol can tell you some things, but in the new world where people add sugar kind of sometimes indiscriminately, it can be a little bit difficult to find. There's lots of wine apps though on your phone that you can get, that you can just take a picture of the label and it can pull up tasting notes for you. And so I highly recommend that. If you're just not sure and you haven't had that wine before and have no idea what you're getting because you didn't get the wine from me, so it doesn't have that little tag with all the information on it, then I recommend Googling it first, especially if you absolutely want a wine that is not sweet at all, or if you absolutely want a wine that does have sweetness. I recommend the internet because it has a lot of information on it. Okay, let me see here what some other questions are. Okay, so Steve says that it's a beer. Okay, fabulous. So, okay, I need to look up more information about beers. I used to don't drink beer anymore, so I'll have to check out a barley wine sometime. So Ricky wants to ask if the wine glass matters. So stem or stemless, white wine glass, red wine glass. And if so, do I recommend any style? This is a great question. And yes, the glass absolutely matters. Virginia, would you mind just on my shelf over there bringing me 3 different styles of glasses? Just drastically different. Yeah, anything, doesn't matter. So yes, I truly believe that most of the wine world has a whole lot of gimmicks, the special aerators and the stoppers and the this and then this and then this. It's a whole lot of money that they're asking you to spend on mostly gimmicks. I do not believe glassware is a gimmick. I believe that glassware makes a huge difference in the wine. So if you have multiple different types of glassware at home, try this experiment here and see for yourself, and then you can decide whether or not to believe me. So this is just a standard white wine glass that I have the white Rioja poured in. Now I'm going to pour it in a red wine glass, a very elegant champagne flute, and while this looks like a Pinot Noir glass, it's actually a Montrachet glass. It's a wine glass specifically made for a type of Chardonnay from one specific region in France. So yes, I am a glassware nerd. So not only will the glassware affect how the wine smells, but it also affects how the wine tastes. And truly, do not take my word for it. That's LeVar Burton reading Rainbow for you. Do this experiment at home. So smelling it in the white wine glass. Oh my gosh, radically different. Instead of all these crisp notes, I'm getting a lot more like masculine, like earthy notes on this wine. So much more minerality, not as much fruit on that. From the champagne flute, I hardly smell anything. Yeah, truly almost nothing. Maybe some lemon if I'm gonna push for it. And from the Montrachet glass, all these like white flowers, but none of the other citrus fruit. So let's taste through them and see how they taste different. When I drink out of the red wine glass, the wine doesn't hit me in the back of the throat. It feels like the wine doesn't have a finish versus it felt like it had a full finish in the white wine glass. Try it with the champagne flute. Even worse. You have the tongue and the texture on the tip of my tongue and the sides of my cheeks, which is what you want when you're drinking sparkling wine. But I get nothing at all in terms of the finish of a wine. So let's try it with the Montrachet glass. Better, but tastes a little metallic. And finally, out of the white wine glass, it literally hits all of the correct points on the tongue and feels like it has the correct finish. So do this experiment at home. Do not take my word for it, but highly recommend you pour the exact same wine, several different types of glassware. You can even try plastic, just like solo cups, a water glass. All of these are Riedel glassware. They're crystal glassware. They're meant for, they're high-end wine glasses for sure, but not all glasses are created for the same wine. I do recommend that you not go out and blow your entire budget and buy a different type of glass for every type of wine you have. I recommend you get a big old red wine glass, a white wine glass, and I actually use this for most of my sparkling wines as well. Yeah, that's what I would recommend. Have a bigger bowl for your red wines that need to aerate a little bit more, that need that extra oxygen influx to open up to breathe, and have a white wine glass. So outside of that, don't blow your budget on a bunch of different types of glassware. But crystal is really important because crystal is porous. So it acts like a sponge, allows that wine to kind of be absorbed into the glass, constantly releasing those esters or those aromatics. So if I pour this wine just into a regular glass, like a cafe style wine glass or a water glass, it's not going to be absorbed into the glass itself. So it's not going to release any aromatics. So you're not going to smell the wine hardly at all. Like we're talking like 5% smell capacity versus 100% smell capacity with crystal glassware. So yes, it doesn't matter if it's Riedel or a different name brand, but crystal is important when it comes to smelling your wine. So great question. All right, let's see what other questions we have. Hi, Monica from Suffolk. Okay, yeah. I didn't know how to chat either. It took a few trial times to figure out how to do this earlier today. Australian Gruner Veltliner or Austrian? Don, please tell me if it's from Australia, which is totally cool, or from Austria, which is also cool, but that's like where it's from. I don't think I've ever had an Australian Gruner Veltliner, so please let me know what you're drinking. Hi, Jen. You paired your Montepulciano di Abruzzo. Just so you guys know, whenever you're talking Italian wine, if you see one word and then a D apostrophe another word, first word is generally the grape, second word is the region. So Montepulciano is the grape from the region of Abruzzo. Montepulciano is also a village, but it is in the area of Tuscany, Italy, on the other coast of Italy, and it does not grow the grape Montepulciano. That's just Italy being very confusing. So you're drinking Montepulciano di Abruzzo with Kalamata olives. That sounds amazing. Parmesan cheese brie. Man, do you do food delivery? Because that sounds absolutely awesome. Hi, Steph and Ken from Virginia Beach. Oh, cool. So you tried a red wine called Amarone at a restaurant recently on the recommendation of a friend. I will absolutely tell you more about Amarone. Amarone is this really cool style of Italian wine made specifically in the Valpolicella region of Veneto, Italy. So northern Italy, Veneto, Italy. And they take these grapes, generally Rondinella, Corvina, and Corvinone, but it could be a mixture of several different other indigenous grape varieties that we don't really see anywhere else in the world. But Amarone, they take these grapes, they harvest them when they're ripe, just like normal, but then they lie them out on these straw mats, and they get layered almost like you see in a pastry, in a bakery shop, where they just have these mats kind of layered in sheet pans, and stacked not on top of each other, but slid into rows in vats. So they take these mats, these straw mats, lie the grapes out all on there, and these grape clusters dry out for no less than 12 weeks until they become full raisins. So they're these big, like, airy, windy rooms. So they're not getting moldy or anything like that. They have lots of airflow, but they become raisins because they've been dried out for so long. And they literally wine these raisins. So imagine trying to take, these juicy fresh grapes, you can like press them and you like can visualize how much juice comes out of them, but try to imagine pressing juice out of raisins. Like that is very, very difficult. So it takes about 8 to 10 times the amount of grapes to make Amarone as it does any other wine. Also why it is so expensive. So for 12 weeks, these grapes are drying out into raisins. Wine is made from that. And so it's really intense. It obviously has this kind of like raisinated flavor to it. It tastes like figs and prunes and dates and all these like really intense flavors. It's the kind of wine that I want, a half a glass of, and that's about all I can take. Also, because the sugars are concentrated, the sugars don't evaporate, just the water, so it makes the alcohol a whole lot more. We just talked about alcoholic fermentation, so the ratio of sugars to juice is much higher, so the alcoholic percentage is much higher. We're talking like 15% on average for these Amarone wines. The interesting thing, though, you would think that the wines would be like way too heavy, too sticky, too viscous on your mouth. But the acids are also concentrated along with the sugars. So instead of it being this like cloying punch in the face, the acids still make it sometimes a very like youthful, vivacious, bright wine, even though it's so rich at the same time. So really interesting. If you got my Italian curated 6-pack, there's a Valpolicella Ripassa in it. Hold on one second. I'm going to grab a bottle. It is one by Tenazzi. This bottle weighs like 25 pounds too. So you can get a workout in by doing some bicep curls while you're on quarantine, even when it's empty. And Valpolicella Ripassa is made from the same grapes of Amarone. But instead of drying out the grapes, they take the wine, make it like normal, and then age the wine for 10 to 12 days on the skins of the grapes that Amarone wine was pressed off of. So they'd make the raisins. They take the raisins, they press them into juice and make wine out of that. They drain the juice off of that. That juice becomes Amarone. And then you're left with the pumice or the skins, the leftover parts of the wine. Then they add Valpolicella, the wines that they're making in normal style, to that mixture, and just for 10 to 12 days, mix it all together. So you have Valpolicella Ripassa, or passed over the skins of the Amarone grapes, to give it that richer style. So Valpolicella, made from the same grapes like normal wine. Valpolicella Ripassa, those grapes, that juice passed over the skins of the Amarone grapes that are dried out on mats for 10 to 12 weeks. So I know it's all really confusing, but those wines are really delicious, just drastically different styles. So if Amarone is a little too much for you, try a Valpolicella Ripassa. And if you love Valpolicella, then that's awesome, because it's a really cool region. So great questions. Thank you all. Okay, let's see here. So Craig says, you said one of your 6-pack wines was from a Tintillion one, similar to the Spanish Tintilla. Yes, it is Spanish. It is, hold on one more second. This is one of the other wines in the Italian 6-pack, and it's by Azienda Agricola, which just means like a farmhouse winery. Vinica is the name of the producer, and it's Tintiglia. And yes, it is. It is the Italian name for Tintilla grape that is grown in Spain and Portugal. So great question. Virginia, who is in my dining room right now, says, on wine labels from Italy, Spain, and France for a server, so a server at a restaurant, what is a good way to describe what things like Crianza Reserva, Gran Reserva mean, and why is it important? Oh my gosh, great question. This I think was one of my most difficult conundrums in the restaurant industry is figuring out how much education a customer wanted when they're just buying a bottle at a table. I'm a total nerd, so it's really hard for me to give no education at all. So I'm always going to advocate for a little bit more education than maybe people want. But y'all are tuned into this virtual wine class, so I feel like y'all can all agree with me. But Crianza, Reserva, and Gran Reserva on Spanish wine labels, specifically in Rioja, I think is the most prominent area that we find them in, just mean how long the wine was aged in oak and in the bottle before it was released. It's not a specific region. It is not a specific grape type, but it does indicate how long the wine was aged, and so it gives you a little bit more indication of what the wine is going to taste like. And this is legally mandated by the government of what you have to do and follow, the steps you have to follow in order to put this on your label. So really important. You can't just willy-nilly put Reserva on your label. Most other places in the world, especially the New World, so think North, South America, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Reserva means nothing. It is strictly marketing. So you can have a wine that you make 5 million cases of, Kendall Jackson Chardonnay that literally says Reserva on it, or Reserve Chardonnay on it. That's not any different than their other Chardonnay. It means nothing else. It didn't come from better vines or better vineyards. They didn't age it longer. It's just a marketing strategy. But in Spain, and especially Rioja, it means something very specific. So Crianza has to be aged for a minimum of 6 months in the barrel and then 1 year in the bottle before it was released. Reserva has to be aged for a minimum of now I'm trying to remember on the fly all my wine rules. I believe it's 1 year in the barrel and then 2 years in the bottle before it's released. And Gran Reserva, 2 years in the barrel, and then the 3 years, up to 5 years total aging in the bottle before it's released. So the interesting thing about Rioja, which is pretty darn cool, is that they release wine when they think it is ready to be consumed. So unlike France, Bordeaux, one of my favorite wine regions in the whole world, they release wine as soon as it's in the bottle and ready to go. So, I mean, it maybe had 6 months in the bottle, who knows? It is shipped out and ready to be sold. Spain, and especially Rioja, has the tendency to age their wine on the winery premise until they believe it's ready to be consumed. So it's not uncommon to find a 1998 current release Rioja. So they might have released that specific wine, that 1998 vintage, Gran Reserva, several times in the last 20 years. So they'll release a certain amount of cases in a batch, and then 5 years later, another batch of cases. And they keep hanging on to it, knowing that the wine is changing and aging. And the price doesn't go up as much as you'd think. If you got a Bordeaux that the winery itself had aged for 20 years, you best believe that you were paying like $2,000 a bottle for that. But in Rioja, it's really common to find older vintage wines that haven't been sitting on the shelves of the wine store or the restaurant for that many years. They've been at the winery, and you're still paying under $50 for it, or under $75. So highly recommend you seek out some older vintage Rioja wines, especially Gran Reserva, because that's 5 years total aging before it's allowed to be released. And then they often double that, triple that, quadruple that before they do. So great question. Awesome. See, Carolyn, can you talk more about organic wines? Awesome. We visited Greece recently. No more travel for us anymore these days, but I'm glad you went when you could. And noticed many wines were organic. What is required for a wine to be labeled organic? Great question. And every country is different. So you can, in order for it to be qualified as USDA organic, there's different regulations than European regulations. But basically, organic is a methodology that requires a maximum amount of chemical use in the vineyards itself, like during the farming practices, and in the winery itself during the winemaking practice. So a maximum amount of pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, sulfur, copper, like anything you can think of that you need, that wineries use, not that you need to, that wineries use to make their wine or to grow the vines. There's maximum caps, so you cannot use more than that and be considered organic. You have to apply that through the government. You have to pay this application fee. You have to pay the test fees for them to come out and verify that you are in fact organically growing and organically making your wine. You can often see, because people don't want to pay for that certification, you can see people say that they are organically growing those grapes or they're organically making the wine without that certification sticker. But basically, up until the 1940s, everything was made organic. It really wasn't until the invention of mass-produced chemicals and mass-produced farming that there was this idea that chemicals help us make more wine, basically. So since the 1950s, I'd say it had its heyday in the 1980s for sure. And I think in the last 15 years, we've seen a tapering off of people using as much of those chemicals as they used to, because they're realizing some of the dangers that come along with that. So a lot of European wines are fully organically made because they never got on board with the chemical use during in the process of growing the grapes and making the wine. I also have a YouTube video about biodynamic wines, which is like to the nth degree more intense than organic. So definitely check that out. But instead of a methodology, that's a full philosophy where they believe that our goal in life is to cultivate a healthy ecosystem, and that makes the best wines. And I gotta say, the wines that I've tasted that are fully biodynamic are legit absolutely delicious. So highly recommend looking more into this. Great question about organic. All right, let's see here. It's so hard to read on this screen. Is there a red wine to go with fish, or are we stuck with white wine? Yes, yes. When I first started getting into wine, my grandmother, who always out these cartoons and mail them to me anytime she thinks of me, clipped out this cartoon of these two bears. These two bears were like sitting by the riverbank sipping some wine, and one bear was drinking red wine, one bear was drinking white wine, and there's a hat on the floor, a boot, a fishing pole, and a gun just kind of scattered around. And the one bear says to the other, "I finally figured out. White wine goes with fishermen and red wine goes with hunters." Oh man, it is so awkward to laugh at my own jokes alone in my apartment, but hopefully y'all are laughing at home too. But the whole idea is that for too many years, we have been pairing wine with the protein, so white wine with white meat, red wine with red meat, and not the preparation. So take that rule book, pair wine with the protein, chuck it out the door with everything else you're getting rid of while you're spring cleaning your house. I do not believe in that. That is not a real rule. So what it comes down to me in terms of pairing is acid, how acidic the wine is, how much does it make your mouth water, how much does it make you pucker up, tannins, that drying sensation in the front of your mouth, how heavy is the wine, how intense is the flavor, is it like level 10 out of 5 where it's just a punch in the face, or is it super soft? Those are the things that I look for when I'm pairing instead of just white wine with white meat. So yes, I really love plenty of red wines with fish, but it all depends on the preparation. If I'm doing just a grilled fillet of fish with just some lemon spritzed on it, unless it's salmon, and even then, I can't imagine pairing anything but white wine with it. But if you're talking, a chutney on top, and it's char grilled or cedar plank salmon, or any of these more richer flavored fishes with more intense preparation and the flavors of the sauces that are on top of the proteins, that's how I pair my wines with that. So definitely when we get back to normal, we do food and wine pairing classes again, check out those. But definitely do not think that red wine can't go with fish. And I have paired white wine with steak before. So all of the basic rules can be chucked out. Awesome. Great. And Alex, I just answered that question. White with steak. Yes. So if you have a white wine with higher acid, higher tannins, higher minerality, that rich viscous intensity to it, really, really bold flavors, absolutely white wine can go with steak. I have paired with white wine with steak plenty of times. So great questions. Denise, hailing from Williamsburg, just tried a red in a larger glass. Holy cow, it was different. Awesome. More fragrant and flavorful. So cool. Yes, it really does make a difference. Never take my word for anything. Never trust the expert. Always do your own experiments on that. So awesome. Hi, Heather. Late posting. And sometimes you can get some really, really amazing red wines from Paso Robles with half the price point. So love the Fabulist. And let's talk about buttery Chardonnays real quick. So what does that mean, buttery Chardonnay? Everyone knows what the taste and the texture of buttery Chardonnays is like, but how does that happen? So it's this cool thing called malolactic fermentation that literally is a secondary fermentation process that all red wines go through, but not all white wines go through. So generally white wines are fermented at a cooler temperature, and they are, the juice is racked off, meaning siphoned off the lees or the dead yeast, all that particulates, at an earlier time, versus red wine is usually fermented at a warmer temperature, and it's not racked off the lees, it's left on the lees for a longer period of time, allowing for those microbials to start a secondary fermentation process in the wine. That process converts mallow acid, think Granny Smith apples or green sour grapes, that really sour, tart, pucker, green Jolly Rancher feeling. That's mallow acid, and it converts those acid compounds into lactic acid. Think lactic, think lactose, milk, butter, cream, creme brulee, that really rich texture. So it's literally converting the acid compounds in the wine, creating a richer texture. That's why generally white wines are more crisp and red wines are a little bit more rich, because all of those red wines have gone through malolactic fermentation. So buttery Chardonnays are white wines that the Chardonnays who have gone through malolactic fermentation process, creating that really rich, viscous, buttery texture. You can push that through either by changing the temperature of the barrel or just allowing the wine to hang out on the lees a little bit longer, and not filtering off the wine. And then you can stop the wine at 10% malolactic, where you've allowed it to convert 10% of those acid compounds into from malic acid to lactic acid, or 100%. So the richer and more buttery it is, the more of that malolactic fermentation process has been allowed to happen or has been like pushed to happen. So just wanted to chat about that. Awesome. Glad you enjoyed the Amarone information. I love nerding out about Amarone wines. It's so interesting. Heather says, my favorite Italian wine so far, La Crema Christi. Awesome. Dio, from Rosa Superiore. Do you carry the wines from the Mount Vesuvius area? Great question. Mount Vesuvius from Naples or Napoli in the Campania area, volcanic soil for days. And we're talking like, you know, in Charlie Brown, where Pigpen is walking by and you see like the clouds of dust following him everywhere. When you walk in these vineyards, it's such powdery, fine volcanic ash, even though like we haven't had an eruption since 39 AD, that it just billows in clouds, and you can just walk through the vineyards and see these clouds still hanging out in the air because the powdery ash is so fine. So just so you guys know, I don't actually carry any wines. I work with people who do. So I can pretty much carry anything I want as long as I have connections to those people who do. But I'm not a distributor. But yes, I have had the Crema de Christi before, and it's pretty interesting, funky wine for sure. Virginia again says, what are some good wine books to read during social distancing? Oh, my favorite topic, books and wine books. All right, I have a whole section here. I have to give a shout out to this though. So this is, I'm really letting my nerd flag show, but this is Japanese anime, and it is about wine and this one person's journey through wine, which was kind of not unlike my own, where I was trying to like fight my involvement in the wine industry for a long time, and it took a while for me to accept that this really was my destiny to get into the wine industry. So yes, you read it back to front instead of front to back. And there's 6 of them translated into English. And they're so fascinating. You can read an entire book in a day. But it changed the way I thought about wine reviews and people's personal experiences with wine. It's not just apple, pear, crisp, light-bodied, medium alcohol, like very technical. People have emotional experiences with wine, and that's what makes it romantic. That's what makes it worth getting into. It's not just the technicalities of it. It is people's emotional connection to wine. So it's called the Drops of God series. So just look on Amazon, Drops of God series, find any book. I think they have 1 through 6 right now, translated into English. Buy them. Oh my gosh, you're going to absolutely love them. You'll read them 5 times like I have. Highly recommend. Now that's more like for fun. For serious, since there was lots of questions about it, it is What to Drink. Oh, this is backwards that you're probably reading. What to Drink with What You Eat is a great book talking about food and wine pairings. And it also gives you some fun experiments to try at home if you're interested. So next video, I'll give some more books because we'll all have time to finish these by the time we tune in next week for a video, a live virtual class. But those are some of my favorite books. And definitely those Drops of God books will change the way you think about wine. Great question here. So let's see here. Thanks for laughing with me. I can't remember what you're laughing about, but hopefully it was good. What do you think of the point system for rating wines? Is it really mostly about money? Oh my gosh, you guys are gonna get me in trouble here. I'm on the internet saying this. I have not the fondest opinion about wine rating systems. First and foremost, because if you've ever met me or been in any of my classes, you know that I am all about empowering your own palate to not trust an expert's opinion, to trust your own palate, and force yourself to constantly expand and grow. Don't be complacent, but focus on your experience with the wine over anyone else's recommendation. So that's part of the problem I find, that everyone experiences wine chemically differently in their mouth, emotionally differently, physically, mentally, spiritually, like you name it. We all have a different experience with wine. So if I just drinking and I love it, we'll say you really like oaky buttery Chardonnays. Well, you're gonna hate this wine. So just because I rated this 95 points or whatever I would rate it, doesn't necessarily mean you are going to enjoy it. So I think wine ratings always just have to be taken with a grain of salt. And you need to find those wine raters, those people who are rating wine that have a similar palate to you. So if I try a bunch of wines that are highly rated by James Suckling, and then by Decanter Magazine, and then by Berghound, and then by Wine Spectator, and then by Wine Enthusiast. I can line up all the different raters. And then I make my own ratings. I might find that I align more with one particular person or wine reviewer than I do another. For instance, I generally disagree heavily with Robert Parker about wine ratings. Like, he's just like, our palates are very different. What we look for in wine is very different. So anything he rates highly, I actually know I should probably stay away from that wine because that's not generally my style of what I enjoy to drink. So that's why whenever I'm teaching classes, I don't tell you what you should get out of the wine or what you should experience with the wine or how you should think about the wine. I give you the tools to experience that and decide that for yourselves. So yes, ratings are helpful when you're trying to just decide whether or not to buy a wine and you've never had it before and you don't have a personal recommendation. But I think that they should be taken with a grain of salt. So man, I'm going to get in trouble for this video, but that's all right. I believe everything I said. Can we do more of these often? Yeah, absolutely. I like virtual classes. Let's see. Can you tell from the bottle if white wine has gone through malolactic fermentation? Oh my gosh. Again, one of those things like trying to decide whether or not a white wine is sweet or not. No, it is so difficult. And while I love that there is no, I'm sorry?
Servers should know.
Yes, your servers should know. If you're at a restaurant, your servers should know whether or not that Chardonnay is oaky and buttery, or if it's light and crisp, or anything in between. Your the curator at your wine store should know, whether you shop at big box stores like Total Wine or like little boutique bottle shops. The people who work there should know. You can always message me and I will help you out, but the information will be up online. That being said, though, I have had some white wines that were fully malolactic, like 100%, that didn't taste over the top buttery, that were actually like balanced and integrated, that I really enjoyed, where generally that's not what I gravitate towards. And I've had the opposite happen, where so sometimes having that information in advance kind of like spoils the well. It leads me to think I'm going to believe a certain way about the wine when I might not if I just tasted it blind. So, but again, if you use one of those apps or just literally, you can look up online tech sheets about almost any wine out there. So you can look up Ostatu, and then you can click on their White Rioja, and it gives you all of the tech information, their tasting notes, and whether or not it's aged in oak, the whole shebang. So that can help you out if you want to do the research, or you can just ask your professionals, because we are dying for the interaction and to help you out. So let's see. Can I post a list of recommended wines later? Yeah, absolutely. I'll probably email that out, actually, since we will all need something else to read. Uncorked, I love it. Yes, love that. Love Uncorked. So there's a whole lot of, on Amazon Prime too, and just on YouTube, there's a whole lot of wine videos out there. Highly recommend. And oh, I love drinking with you too, even though we're like very far away, but this is awesome. So, all right, y'all. Well, it is 8 o'clock. So you've probably finished more wine than me. Now I'm extra thirsty because I've been talking a whole lot and I keep forgetting to sip some wine. So please continue to post your questions. I'd love to do this again. I will look at my calendar and oh, yeah, I'm wide open. So I'll definitely do this again, and I'll post a link out and schedule everything out. I hope you all stay safe and healthy. If you need wine delivered to your house, please let me know. And I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Keep your chin up, everybody. And until then, drink wine, read wine books, watch wine blogs or vlogs or videos or podcasts or anything. Just use this time to learn a little bit. And I look forward to seeing you on the other side. So cheers, everybody. Bye.